We're going to talk about finding the right energy for developing your practice time at this time in our lives. I'm not the one who's going to be talking to you. Simone is. Hello,
Hello.
Simone.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to.
And it's my happy privilege to introduce you. Simone is a transformational coach. She's a sound healer and a vocalist. And I'm going to read, Simone, one sentence from your website. Simone empowers conscious, soul-driven creatives and entrepreneurs to authentically express themselves and create a more meaningful life. Now,
Yes.
I know Simone, and I've been in her house, and I've worked with her, and every word of that is true.
Oh, thank you.
Simone, you were born in Trinidad. You've lived in New York,
Yes.
Barbados, and London.
That's
You're
right.
appreciated as a lecturer at several prominent music colleges. You had 3 incredible years as a backing vocalist working with Eddie Grant. Did you sleep during that time?
Very little. I always say that I slept, ate, and breathed music, so I wouldn't say slept much, no.
You spend a lot of time helping musicians reach their goals, and also the whole area of sound healing, which you and I have touched on, and I want to do a chat with you on that
Sure.
area in the future.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. So
Would love to.
one recent development in Simone's life that I'm very happy about is that she has joined the Singdaptive team of instructors, where she is offering her wisdom and wit and insights through our on-demand singing lessons. And today, we're going to talk to you, Simone, about finding the right energy for practicing singing, because I think that's on
Yes.
a lot of people's minds these days. So
Hmm.
let me just begin by asking you, what's your headline here, and what do you most want to emerge from the wisdom you're going to share about getting into the right frame of mind to have a productive practice time as a singer?
Well, I think that the real salient points or the message that I would want to convey in the end is simply there are strategies, but it's also okay to listen to yourself and to your needs. So as a general, there's so many things I can talk about in terms of motivating people, but right now in the current climate, the world we're in right now, it's also okay to take a moment, to take a breath, literally and figuratively, and to just pause and give yourself a moment. But I would say when you're ready, and if you feel like it's time now, then there are really very clear strategies that you can put in place to kickstart that motivation and get you back into singing.
I really like it how you started this talk by talking about taking a breath. I think I've spent a lot of money just to learn, if I just breathe, that everything
Yes.
feels better.
Oh, yes, it so does. And that's a great starting point for everyone. So for singers, you can imagine what it does, getting them into the practice before anything else.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, I think the critical thing, a thing I'm always wondering about with myself, is the motivation key. And
Sure.
what do you find really hinders motivation, and what do you find really helps it?
So my starting point with most people when I'm working through that, with myself first and foremost, but working with clients and singers over the years, is most of the time when we're not motivated to do something, it's because we've lost our connection to why we do it in the first place. So it's really getting back to that big why, the big reason that motivated us to take up singing or a singing practice in the first place. And when we are able to connect in that way, then what we do really is we separate the shoulds from the musts. And what I mean by that is, oh, I really should practice today, or I should get this done, or there's a very different energy between I should do this and I must do this. I must get up and do this. And so the connecting to the reason you're doing it in the first place, which for most people is something that's going to be fulfilling for them, whether it's I just want to be able to sing and my children listen and appreciate that voice, or I want to get up on stage, I want to be in the West End, I want to just use my voice in a different capacity.
You've been talking about the element of moving from I should practice to I must, because I've got a reason.
Yes.
Is this a lesson that you learned the hard way in your life?
I don't know if I would say that I learned it the hard way. I think it was something that I was fortunate enough to have parents that embedded in me earlier. Very early in my life. It was always about, giving us reasons and helping us to find and look within for the reasons, most importantly, as to why we wanted to do something or why we were feeling a certain way. Very much that inward questioning and inward looking so that the outward expression would then benefit from it.
And you knew from early on in your life that you must sing. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm one of those stories that I would say as young as 7, I knew I wanted to sing. I wasn't one of those children that went from singer to president to firefighter. I want to sing at the age of 7, and it's what I pursued my entire life, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, you have been working with singers for a long time and would you say that it is common for a singer to have their love for singing clouded over by their own expectations of themselves in practice?
Sometimes it is clouded over by their own expectations. Sometimes it's external expectations or the music industry. I mean, I recently, in fact, did a podcast on how to find your authentic voice, and we spoke a lot about that because it was sometimes certain briefs are required or certain things are required from you that don't necessarily always feel aligned. And so that's okay because it's part of the journey. But inwardly, when you're doing your own practice and you're working towards something, there is always a way to cultivate and generate joy. And whether the outcome or the stage or whatever it is that's going on the outside is the ideal environment or not. So I'm very much focused on why are you taking a breath in for 4 counts and then letting it out for 8? When I work in a technical way, I explain every facet of an exercise.
Yes.
When they go into the practice, as mundane or boring as it might seem, they're going to go, but I know that if I'm able to to exhale consistently and really well over 10, then the note that I'm trying to hit in this song, I'm not going to have to think about it because I've worked it out in the breathing.
Right. So you've given us the big headline, Simone, about we need to move from our should to our must. We need to reconnect with the reason we're doing this.
Yes.
Tell us how are some ways that you embody this movement with singers you're working with, and what can we do with ourselves when we're tied up in these knots in our singing practice?
Yeah, so I started to say before we lost connection briefly before that we have these drivers within us, and these are what I call pain and pleasure, or not what I call, but they're called pain and pleasure drivers. And it's a very human nature thing where there is the natural part of us wants to avoid pain, and there's a part of us that wants to move towards pleasure. So what I often do is I figure out with my clients which one is driving them more in that instance. So let's say, for example, I'll give you an example outside of singing and then I'll bring it into that context. Okay. If you say, you know what, I need to go to the gym. I really need to go and exercise. Some people might feel more motivated to do that when they imagine and envision the healthy, fit body. They can see themselves feeling and moving in the way they want. But others, it would be the vision of them looking unhealthy and out of shape and not being able to do the things that they want to do. Sometimes those things drive us sometimes more than the other. So when I'm working with a client, sometimes I might ask them, well, tell me right now, what is it that is most important to you? Yeah. And the question often comes up either or. Well, you know what? I really don't want, I need to learn these lyrics because I just don't want to look like a fool in front of everyone else.
Okay.
And someone else might say, I really need to learn these words because it's important for me to, make sure that I can understand how to actually express myself in a really positive way or mindful way when I'm on stage. So they both have very different driving factors there.
Right, and you're not saying that one is better than the other.
No, I'm saying that they're both important and you can acknowledge for yourself which one is driving you more and use it as a motivating factor to help you.
So it's fairly practical. It's whatever works to get me into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because ultimately there are going to be things that pop up, whether it's the internal resistance or whether it is, you know, life happens. It happens. We can't ignore that life happens. But there are times that you just have to do something. And so you need to be able to tap into something that's going to drive it. And this isn't not necessarily going into a fear tactic. I just want to be clear on that, because knowing that there's this natural part of you that wants to avoid something. And there's a natural part of you that wants to go towards and enjoy something. So we tap into both areas, or the one that's most prominent that will drive you. And most people can relate to it when it comes to exercise, which is why I use this as an example.
Yeah, this is really good. I'm glad you brought up this. It might be a subtle distinction between fear and motivation. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think a lot of us do go, oh, shoot, I don't want to look, I'm scared of looking like a fool. Yeah. And so I'm going to practice. But you're saying, no, it's not quite that.
Well, it's not about fear. That's a pain driver. It means that the pain of them is looking like a fool, and it's okay to use that driver.
Sure.
What I want to say is that it's not saying I'm afraid to do these things, so I better.
Right.
Don't want you to sit in fear, but it's realizing these are the things that you're wanting to avoid. So let's find ways to avoid them. And you'll find that these pain and pleasure drivers work across different areas of your life. So with singing, you'll figure out the ones that work best for you. I think it's mixed. I get a mixed bag with singers that I work with. I wouldn't say it's one more than the other. It's a very personal thing. But again, just one simple thing. Ask yourself the question, what is it that I really want to get out of this? Or what is it that I'm really trying to avoid, so that you know which one is going to drive you into the practice?
And do you think that this asking of the question, you know, of why must I do this, becomes more natural? Or do you think it's something that we always just have to visit afresh when we practice?
I think it becomes more natural, as in with time. It's like anything. You're exercising the motivation muscle, which is, you know, walking parallel with anything that you do. So if it's singing or anything else, it's a walking parallel. So you exercise that enough so that you know already, it's like a switch. I know what I need to get started. I know how to get up and get myself moving, because you've practiced that.
I love that phrase, the motivation muscle.
Yes, yes. Definitely.
I think I need to work on that a little bit, that muscle.
What is driving you? What are you going towards, Greg, or what are you going away from, right? That's it.
Okay. What am I going towards, and what am I going away from? That's a fantastic set of questions.
Yeah, because it's a natural thing that we do. It's something that's innate, I think, as human beings. You know, when we are, like I said, we are now aware that this is painful, or perceived as painful. And I'm not talking about danger. I'm not talking about putting your hand over a fire, the things that we know. I'm talking about the things that you perceive as, this is going to be really hard if I don't. And this is going to be really great if I do. And so which one is driving you in that moment?
So now I've done that and I'm into my practice. Are there any other big dangers or concerns we should watch out for that could stop us from a productive, energetic practice? Resistance,
the big R. The big R. You know, resistance comes up a lot for everyone, but creatives, especially when we're in a creative process, it can bring up a lot of things, whether it's emotions or feelings about the art, or judgments, or a lot of things can come up, and it's sometimes used as a reason not to continue. But here's the nuance. That resistance is often coming up because of the perception of pain. It's that this is going to be painful, even if it's, and so we really need to look at how we can address the mind, and the unconscious mind in particular, around that, and find pleasurable ways of bringing joy and generating that in a practice. So I like people to move and to shake and get rid of tension in their body. I get them to set an intention at the beginning of their practice, so that the intention is what's driving the entire practice. Even if it's 20 minutes a day, they know that today, all I want to get out of this practice is to feel like I breathed deeply, and that I was able to get into a part of my voice that I didn't get into yesterday. Even if that's the only intention you set, your mind is going to follow you towards that intention, and then therefore easier to, to actually achieve the goals you set.
So we get resistant. We get that sense of resistance when we start becoming afraid, and I love how you said shaking your body, because we started today by talking about the power of just taking a breath, and that is a physiological thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. And often changing your physiology is the fastest way to changing a state. So if you're feeling tired and you're like, oh, I really can't be bothered today, you know, there's something in your body and you kind of slump, your breathing's very different to, I can't wait to start my day. It's a different energy. So changing the physiology is a quick way of changing the state. It's often where I take people first.
Oh, that's just brilliant. I want to ask you now about some of these themes now I'm being reminded of are part of your lessons at Singdaptive. And so I wanted you just to share a little bit about what you're teaching at Singdaptive, and then we'll come back and have you close off this session.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm teaching a lot of things that are mostly, but not only, related to the inner workings of the singer. And that's a very big interest of mine, as you're well aware. I know that skills and techniques and all of the things that we do are so important. But if we ignore the things, the inner looking and the inner questions, then the things on the outside are reflected. And so it's really important to get in and ask the questions, whether that is about a goal that you want, whether that is just related to, as we've talked about today, motivation or emotions. And so, for example, some of the topics that I covered for the courses and the lessons, one particular one that I think is going to be really interesting is how to use your voice, or how to use sound to help you release emotion.
Right. Yeah.
Because as singers, we want to be able to just get up and sing and do whatever we want all the time, but we're people. We have challenges, we have issues, we have things like every other human being, but we need to show up. So when you are, you know, used to using sound in your voice, how powerful can that be to then use it to help you get over some of the stuff that's going on in the background, so that you can show up and be that bright star that you want to be.
I could just listen to you all day talk about these themes, and I just find it so powerful how you've led us from discover your must, expect almost that you will have resistance, and when you do, you can take some practical steps to shake things up physically, breathe, and so forth. As we come to a close, Simone, is there anything else you want to add to this theme of finding the right energy for practicing singing? I feel like you have hit it head on. I'm very happy with it. But maybe there's something that you say to singers, or you remind them, that I haven't quite gotten to yet. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Greg. I think the last piece really of the motivation puzzle for me is, who are you, besides yourself, who else are you doing it for? I think it's really important for us to look beyond ourselves. We have to look at who we're serving. Otherwise, we'll sing in our bedrooms and do only that for only us to hear. If you're wanting to practice singing, I believe it's because you're wanting to express something outwardly. Who else are you doing that for? When you create necessity around the actual thing you're wanting to do, it's such a powerful thing. Oh, I'm singing for my children. You know how many times we hear on television shows and in music, oh, I'm doing this for my family, or I want to help my parents, or we recognize how much these things are important to people. And when you think, who else, who other than me am I doing this for? It opens up the doors to something beautiful. So if it's not a practice that you do, think about the service piece. Think about who you're serving by using your voice, because then you're going to practice. When you're in that room and you're going to do the work, because you're going to realize that's for you. Here's that gift. I have it and I'm sharing it with you.
So, Simone, in the many performances that you've given, you've done that. And have those been different people that you focused on in your mind in different performances?
Sometimes at different times in my career, you know, initially it felt like it was just for me. I just wanted to get out there and sing. It was calling. I really needed to do it. There were points that I did it for my family. I remembered when I did a graduation performance, I sang my dad's favorite song. It would have been the first time he saw me perform since I was really young. And I thought, I'm going to sing Summertime. He loves jazz. So that was specifically for him. And it was beautiful just because I had that intention. And then sometimes it is just, I want to know that one person in the audience, I don't have to know them, but at least one person in the audience felt what I gave. And they could go with that expression. And if everyone felt it, yay, but that one person is going to pay it forward. So I'll be happy with the one, but if I get the 1,000, and win-win. We have.
Well said. Simone Niles, transformational coach, sound healer, vocalist. I'm just so happy that you were able to share these insights today, because I think a lot of us need them. We're sitting at home with a little bit more time in our hands, and you've brought us back to our why, and thank you for that. So if people want to hear more about Simone, come over to Singdaptive. She's got an instructor page there, and you can learn about her courses. Thank you so much, Simone,
for
joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.